No.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 24th meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller,
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson,
Present.
Commissioner Sidney Bremer,
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels,
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky,
Present.
Commissioner Michael Pratt.
Present.
Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the April 24th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Commissioner Craddock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the March 27th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Commissioner Craddock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then moving on to regular business, starting with a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will be provided a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And now we will open the public hearing on item number 1, public hearing on the request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the property located at 2850 Humboldt Road from park uses to commercial uses, submitted by Diane Crowley, property owner.
Thank you, Chair. This first item is related to item numbers 2, 3, and 4 as well. Likely, I will not be giving an additional staff reports. This may be it. The location is 2850 Humboldt Road. This is right next to the request we had last month for a cell tower, which was located here. So this is the current location of Jimmy Sims. It's been a restaurant use for years and years. The request is to amend our comprehensive plan and also to do a rezoning on this parcel. So to start with the comprehensive plan, it's showing as park use. Most of the land surrounding this parcel is owned by the Parks Department, and it is intended to remain as a heavily wooded park area. This, however, has no benefit to the Parks Department. They have no interest in expanding their parks, and this is intended to remain commercial. So the comprehensive plan amendment would change this from that parks designation to commercial. The zoning is its own little bag of fun. So this is split zoning along this parcel. I'm not entirely sure how this ever happened, because the commercial entity isn't even in this portion. It's a little bit more over here. But for some reason, this one little spot has the C1 zoning, the rest of it has R1 zoning. The intention is to clean this up and to have it follow the parcel lines to be the C1 zoning in its entirety. A slight issue came up today. They are looking to complete this request as part of an expansion project, which is shown here. So they are looking to add a patio area onto a portion of their land. However, the area they were hoping to expand into is actually owned by the Parks Department. So they need to execute a land swap with the Parks Department, and we did not receive the boundaries for that new land swap area in time for this meeting. So we're hoping to still hold the public hearing on both the comprehensive plan amendment and on the rezoning to see if there are any public comments, because we did not have time to send out letters to notify that this was going to be held. But we cannot go through with the action because we don't actually have the boundaries quite yet. It will be somewhere in here that the expansion will happen, and then they'll swap somewhere down here. So it really won't have any effect on the use of the property. However, it will affect where the boundaries lie. So we don't want to have to go through this action twice. So that is the background for both items 1 and 3.
Okay, thank you, Steph. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Yes, I guess. Mark Harrell, 2884 Humboldt Road. So she wants to build a little building on the left side? How would she get a lot of fill in there?
And this is the public hearing portion, so there's not a question and answer. You
Oh.
can certainly ask your questions, but there won't be any responses to it at this time.
I guess that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else listening to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item. Item number 2, consideration with possible action on the request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the property located at 2850 Humboldt Road from park uses to commercial uses, submitted by Diane Crowley Property.
Thank you. So to answer the question that was posed during that public hearing, a portion of this was already over the property line. The rest of it will be filled as needed, but it does show a step down. You know, there will be some grade changes within that patio area. The details of that would be sorted out through our site plan process. We are recommending that we hold this item until we have the land swap boundaries.
Oh, okay. Right, so I certainly entertain a motion.
Yeah, motion to hold the item. Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, a second by Commissioner Braddock to hold the item. Any further discussion?
Do we know when we would address this? For those who are interested, would it be next meeting?
Probably not, but we will send another letter to the property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor of holding?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so then that will be held indefinitely. Yes. Moving on to item number 3, which is a public hearing. And again, this public hearing has been properly posted and notification has been published in the press times. We ask that you confine your testimony to the facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. So we will now open the public hearing on the request to rezone the property located at 2850 Humboldt Road from split general commercial and low density residential to general commercial, submitted by Diane Crowley Property.
Same spiel.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Mark Carroll, 2884 Humboldt Road. So this new building she wants to put up, is it just a part of a little restaurant or
I guess
You
it's
can't
just a
answer that
public hearing.
again?
No, it's not.
next week that is available?
Nope, it's indefinitely was held from the last item, so
Okay, sorry.
that's okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Linda Harrell, 2884 Humboldt Road. So what is the difference between the low density residential and the general commercial?
Again. this
You
is a
just can't,
public-
you don't,
yeah, public
okay,
hearing. You can certainly ask your questions, but we cannot answer them. at this time.
okay,
The next item, I'll be able to do that.
okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on the request to rezone the property located at 2850 Humboldt Road from split general commercial and low density residential to general commercial, submitted by Diane Crowley Property.
Thank you. To further clarify, this is not a building addition. This is just an outdoor patio area. So just, you know, what are those things called? A pergola,
Yeah.
you know, patio stones, no building will be as part of this expansion. The difference in R1 and C1 zoning is pretty substantial. R1 is basically for low density residents. So single family homes, maybe duplex. Not many commercial uses in that. Commercial is designated for restaurants, offices, things like that. So the distinction is pretty clear that a restaurant belongs in a C1 district, not in an R1 district.
Right.
And our recommendation is to hold.
Oh, I was gonna say, that. Sorry.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bremer, a second by Commissioner Braddock to hold this item. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will be held indefinitely. Moving on to item number 5, which is the public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the planning commission in order to speak. We will now open the public hearing on item number 5, public hearing on the request for a conditional use permit at 158 North Maple Street to allow for the development of the dormitory within the office residential submitted by the Redevelopment Authority of Green Bay property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just kind of give a quick background. So this is an existing, over 3,200 square foot footprint home on the corner of North Maple and Hubbard Street, right at the Hubbard Street cul-de-sac. Keep in mind, the lot is about 4,200 square feet, so there's like 300 square foot difference. That's water driveway or whatnot. So that was the first picture. The second one kind of showing what it is. It was built around the turn of the century, 1903, 1904 was the guesstimate. It is a very, very large house. Sometime in the 60s or 70s, it had been converted from a single family home into a 6-unit apartment building.
6.
And not maintained very well. The city acquired it. I want to say about 4 years ago. About 4 years ago with the goal of light elimination primarily. So whether that was to rehab it and sell it or to take it down, we didn't know, but city had to do something. So the redevelopment authority purchased it. You go to the next slide, you can kind of see the pictures. So the top picture is from the intersection of Hubbard. And it's kind of hard to see, but it is an old Queen Anne style. So it at one point probably had a turret. It's only a 1-story turret now. And then you can see on the Hubbard Street side on the bottom picture, there is 3 or 4 parking stalls there, a couple jump platforms for some of the or exit platforms for the multifamily that was there. Next slide, please. So the future land use plan recommends medium to high density housing along the Hubbard Street corridor. And then it drops down to a low medium housing as you go back into the neighborhood. From a zoning perspective, pretty much everything here is either zoned office residential, which is a mixed use zoning, which is a higher density zoning, or downtown, which is the brown. Go to the next one. So this is a rendering or a cursory or conceptual thought of how that would be, how that building would be redesigned. Again, the building itself is 3,800 square feet. The lot is, I believe, 4,100 square feet. So basically the city of Green Bay, the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and base companies who are the owners of the rail yard property over the old Larson Green. They're working together. All 3 entities are working together to rehab this former multifamily home and create what's known as the Center for Community-Based Learning, or what we call the center. It is really designed to provide affordable housing for students who are in Civic Scholars Program, allowing them to do internships, work with neighborhood association in exchange for reduced rent. It is the first of its kind for the UW system, and definitely the first, I would say, officially sanctioned housing product coming out of the University of Wisconsin Green Bay outside of the campus. So for us, very, very exciting. Well, let me see if I can go out to the next one. So these are just elevations. So the outside of the building is going to be fully rehabbed. They'd be going with a fiber cement siding, pretty much all over the building. Relocating windows and adding new windows where the new room layouts kind of dictate. They would replace them. They would put some access shingle siding, trim boards, and custom millwork, kind of keep that historic, much of the historic quality as they can. There is not a lot of historic integrity left in this building,
Hmm.
a little bit on the outside. And quite a lot of nice features on the inside, but. Yeah, they're not configured very well. They would add metal railings on the second floor, that would extend up for upper level patios, from the first floor. Essentially, the property itself will be unchanged. However, they would be adding a one-stall garage into the eastern portion of the building off the cupboard and have 3 to 4 surface stalls. Next slide, please. The inside of the building is where you're gonna see the most major changes. Except for, of course, the outside will be heavily cleaned up. So the first floor is gonna obviously be the main floor, would be redesigned and completely rebuilt. It would have a meeting room. Communal kitchen and a half bath, as well as the ADA access to the ramp that would come from the outside into the main hall. And also have an ADA living space, so a bathroom, restroom, and a bedroom that's designed for ADA accessibility. The second floor would basically have single and double bedrooms for students. Also have a full bath. The top floor would have an office and a bedroom for the Vista Fellow, who would be sort of like the resident advisor, although he or she does not work for the university, they're a separate entity. Plus potentially 1 or 2 additional bedrooms up on that third floor, depending on how it all shakes out, with a full bath. So that's kind of how the interior would be redone. It would be a dormitory for 5 to 6 students. Also the Vista resident assistant, I'm not sure if they're calling them that, or resident aide. And again, the site itself would not change too drastically. When we reviewed the comp plan, or not comp plan, the conditional use permit requirements, there are basically 7, and you see them in your staff report. We reviewed those. We also looked at the land development standards for dormitories, and I won't go through all those as well since you have a giant agenda, but there are 7 that go along with that. When staff looked at the development standards, we found that the proposal meets all of the development standards in the code. We also believe that the use itself is not inconsistent or contrary to the existing land uses in the area. The density of 6 students and or seven units in there, I guess, 6 dormitory units is probably much lower than the high density would allow, and frankly, much lower than the 6 full units that were in there just a few years ago. So we do believe it meets the CUP standards for approval. However, we are adding some additional comments based on the specifics of this being a dorm rather than just another congregate living establishment. So we would put a maximum capacity of 6 students that are students at UWGB and the 1 Vista Fellow to act as the caretaker. If the dormitory use is discontinued, the operation is dissolved, or UWGB Center for Civic Engagement no longer operates or manages, the conditional use would terminate immediately. And you'd have to come back to do another dormitory or that type of use in the building to the planning commission and council. Conformance with operating plan submitted by the applicant, conformance with every other code in the municipal code. And the last one, final site and building plans to be reviewed and approved by the Green Bay Redevelopment Authority, who currently still own the property. I won't make a recommendation, but you can see it on there.
Thank you, Dave. I was like, we're still in public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, all right, all right, so we are opening the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak?
I just, Brian Johnson, obviously alderman for this area. So just in case you're looking for that affirmation, I think this is a great project. This is, I mean, the perfect use for this type of site. One of the concerns that I had when the city purchased the property, I know they talked about a lot of different options. And one of them was even contemplating converting it back to a rental unit. I wasn't fond of that idea. I didn't think we should be subsidizing, that type of transaction. But this is, I think, fundamentally different because of the programmatic nature of it. So just wanted to let the plan commission know I fully support this. It's a good proposal.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 6. Consideration with possible action on the request for a conditional use permit at 158 North Maple Street to allow for the development of the dormitory within the office residential submitted by the redevelopment authority of Green Bay property owner.
Yes, and I won't kind of go back over it all, but I'll just give you the highlights. 6 students, 1 resident advisor. Massive interior renovation and a lipstick all over the outside of the building. New roof and also make it sustainable that it'll survive throughout the years. Staff is recommending approval of the request with the 5 conditions that are listed before. There is a zoning action sign out front. They had a neighborhood meeting, I believe, on April 3rd. Few neighbors showed up. The only concern was the exterior design that fits in with the rest of the neighborhood. Yeah, aldermen and neighbors within 200+ feet were notified, and the Fort Hall Neighborhood Association as well.
Well, and I feel like that intersection, they've just done so much. That house across the way that they redid, the one house that was not there, what if you lot now a house, and then on St. Patrick's.
Yep.
They haven't done much, but the rest of that corner has been really busy. Me and my kids walk by this house all the time, and are always going up to the porch and looking at the windows.
A lot of improvements.
So just as a point of disclosure on this one, I am that house that was across the street that was just built. But also I did work with base companies and UWGB consulting on this project early on in the phases, but did not receive any financial compensation for it. And have not received anything since then. But just wanted to put that out there.
Another question for Dave. There's the maximum of 7 individuals intended as a cutback from what is proposed here because it has room for 9.
Well, what was in their proposal was 5 to 6 students and 1 visitor.
Right, I'm talking about the site plan.
With a layout of the interior.
Yeah, it shows.
Yeah, well,
9 separate.
keep in mind that the site plan, the interior, the exterior are all cursory right now. So those are not guaranteed. This is a CUP, not a PUD. So there may be changes to it in the future, which was part of the reason why the site and building plan to go back to the property owner, which is the RDA, for final approval.
But you all are clear that it shouldn't be more than 7.
That is what's proposed, and that's kind of where we're blocking it. I mean, if there is a larger need, it could come back and be amended. But I believe the city just sort of removed 6 full units. And I'm not sure if we want to add the exact same amount back. And keep in mind, there's 1 garage space and 4 parking spaces on the site. So as you add more, that becomes a necessity. However, there's a huge city parking lot about 300 feet to the east. And St. Pat's too, who also has probably share and also. I don't know.
Thanks.
So yes, we do feel that 7 is an appropriate at this.
Then, Madam Chair, I would like to open the floor and hear from the proposers as to whether or not they are content with that number for their program reasons.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Bummer, second by Commissioner Pratt to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone here from the applicant? Or I know Will looks like he wants to say something too.
Well, I don't. Do you want us to go? Do you want me to go first? Sure. So I'll step up to the podium here just so that human. I'm actually representing staff of City of Green Bay. So Will Peters, neighborhood development specialist for the City of Green Bay. And just to elaborate a little bit on your question around capacity. Since this is a first of its kind program for UWGB and the neighborhood as well. We're looking at kind of a phased approach of growth. So really, we're looking to start with 6 or 7. And when we were working with our architect and we got these plans back and they showed all of this room, we kind of couldn't believe, like, oh my gosh, you can comfortably fit like 9 people in there. Working with Professor David Corey, who is here as well representing UWGB, and he'll speak as well. We actually foresee, if everything goes well, this program could potentially be quite successful. And WGB staff do feel that it could support between 9 and even 11, not to say that it's always going to be 9 or it's always going to be 11 students there at one particular time. But clearly there's sufficient space there for that. And these are a different, I guess, group of students that we're going to be working in this program. They really have a specific focus to be there and involved in this program. So yeah, so I just wanted to elaborate on that. Obviously, we would come back to the RDA as it states in the conditional use permits if we are looking at increasing that capacity. But initially, to start, we are looking at the 6 to 7. That's where both and
Can jump in here too. I'm David Corey from 1917 Lakeside Place, representing UWGB. And our idea is that we would be, this would be open to juniors and seniors. So it wouldn't be first or second year students because they need to live on campus as they should and their housing contracts, et cetera. But the other thing that we think is very exciting is that we have several new graduate programs. We're starting a new master's in public administration policy, and we think this would be ideal for ways of recruiting graduate students from outside of Green Bay to come who need housing and would be working in the city anyway. So this would be a great opportunity for them to be in the city, to be engaged with the city, with the chamber, with downtown Green Bay, on Broadway, to be in the heart of the city. And so we're confident that there's a lot of growth opportunities for those graduate programs. We have some other graduate programs as well in education, in our business program. So we're confident that we, between the undergraduates as well as the graduate students, that we would be able to place them. And the VISTA is a federally funded program. It's AmeriCorps is the sponsor of the VISTA, and through Campus Compact, which is a national organization that assists universities and colleges for community-based learning and civic engagement. We've been allocated a particular VISTA. So that person who will be a graduate will be there to help coordinate a lot of these types of programs and oversee a lot of the programming that we hope to have in the meeting room that's in the front of the house.
Thank you. Thank you.
Question. Since this sounds like it's the first housing project off campus, I assume there'll be some sort of coordination with housing on campus in terms of student conduct and student responsibilities. Campus housing.
Yes, although since the property will not be owned by the university, that and I don't know what you mean. Coordination of
Well, so it won't be considered an extension of residence life.
Correct.
Campus. It'll be an independent thing.
Right.
And the VISTA won't necessarily be responsible for residence life needs, et cetera, of the student.
Correct. So this is not, so UWGB is a little bit unusual within the UW system in that our residential housing is a separate nonprofit and it's not technically part of the university and therefore not a state entity. So there's sort of a three-way triangulation, but this property will be owned by Base Corporation. So it's an unusual sort of legal agreement that Base Corporation will own it, but the university will agree that we will provide students who will live there. The university will be responsible for fundraising in order to offset the cost to give a discount to the students. When you're talking about student conduct, the VISTA will be ensure that there's not inappropriate things going on, if that's the concern or the gist of your question, but.
I come from a housing background. So
Okay.
I think,
So I mean, I think that the
So
students
so when we had off-campus housing, there was some level of supervision from residents, like,
that would,
or a sense of services, if there was some sort of.
so there'll be a strong oversight from our center as well as the VISTA. This will be a by choice, so students will have to apply. So I'm confident that students who apply for this, saying that they want to and they agree to a year or 2-year community-based learning project, will be some of the better students at the university who are really committed to that. But because of the legal agreement, it wouldn't technically fall under the auspices of university housing to oversee or implement particular codes or restrictions that fall under the university. Yeah.
So if there's an issue on site, they're going to be talking either to the VISTA, or they'd be calling like any
Correct.
resident in Green Bay.
Yep. Exactly.
They wouldn't be calling campus safety or campus.
No, because it's technically not going to be owned by the university.
Correct, yeah, okay, I'm just interested.
Yep. No, it's a good question.
Do you have any further questions for the applicant?
Thanks.
you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope,
You're
good.
All right, thanks. Was there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Bremer to close the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? And then. Any further questions for staff for any discussion?
I'm with you.
Second.
Had a motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Commissioner Daniels. Any further discussion? Go with the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward for the next city council meeting on May
Second,
2nd. Thank you.
I hope I think I just.
That's next Tuesday. Yeah, next. All right, okay. All right, moving on to item number 7, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. Now open the public hearing on item number 7, public hearing on the request for a conditional use permit at 1200 South Broadway to allow a self-service storage facility in a special purpose residential light industrial district submitted by Philip Barson Corporation applicant and Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. We don't normally see that district come up on the process very often, and this is one of the uses that we might see down there. So what you're looking at is an overhead of the property over at 8th and Broadway, is a vacant lot. Next, please. So the future land use for this area calls for light industrial. This use itself is a conditional use in just typical light industrial districts, and it is in this district as well. So next. So the zoning, yes, it's special district, residential light industrial. And so what does that mean? It's just it's an area in the South Broadway area. It's a unique district within the city itself. It's established to address planning and land uses and opportunities that go beyond the general purposes of the city conventional zoning districts. SRLI district is a mixed use district, meaning it is intended to encourage a mix of compatible land uses in a variety of locations and scales in order to preserve and enhance the vitality of the neighborhood. The overall intent of the land use within the district is to allow for a continuation of and limited expansion of single and 2-family residential. In addition to accessory uses for those residential uses, where they enhance the vitality of commercial or industrial uses. And to allow for a carefully selected set of commercial and light industrial uses, which are compatible with existing and anticipated housing within the area. So we're seeing next this is the property itself right now. It's a vacant land. It's at the corner. It's about 8,000 square feet or so, so pretty small. Next. So we received from Barsan Corporation a proposal to have self-storage. Not the way we typically associate self-storage, but much more individualized and personal. So it's a 3-story building he's proposing on the site itself. With parking inside of the building on the first floor. Approximately at the moment, 116 individual units is what he's shooting for on the site. That said, I'll get into this moment. I'll probably go ahead and scale this back down from the 116 he was initially proposing this project. Storage units to be on both the first, second, and third floors with some parking on the first floor. Next. So you see a conceptual rendering of the project itself. He's looking to go ahead and use a combination of exposed finished concrete, custom sheet metal similar to apartment buildings, windows on the upper floors, a first floor storefront look, and outdoor lighting. Next. This you see is a rendering of what it might look like from a driveway entrance off of the alley itself. It's being corner lot. Next. This is the first floor. You can see the unit sizes of 5x5, 5x10, and 10x10. Mixed throughout both the first, second, and third floors. You see a drive coming into the property itself with just 3 individual parking stalls. So part of the things that are at play right here is, noting that these are not typical garage stall storage units either for people, particularly more of a urban centralized area to where people be going ahead and taking advantage of their units perhaps more often than just storing a large vehicle and leaving it there for the time being. These we project would be used more often than typical, than being so small. Within the zoning code itself, it states that for every 10 individual units, you must have one parking stall. For normal, typical suburban self-storage facilities, not an issue. They're all parking stalls, they're all garages. That's not the case right here. So you'll note, this right here does not meet what they need to go ahead and have to meet code. We're not suggesting go ahead and lower it all. You couldn't do that with CUP. So that said, there have to be some changes with this to go ahead and allow either one, more parking on the first floor, which would potentially eliminate some of those units in general. Go ahead and find that ratio to get to where it's even. Or two, take advantage of finding shared parking somewhere else within 1,000 feet of the facility, which if we go back up to, I think, slide 23 or 20, keep on going. 20. There are areas where it's potential where they can go ahead and find some different private property owners who might be willing to go ahead and find a win-win right there for some parking. When talking with the applicant about this, he is on the line here, so later on, he might be able to go ahead and explain this as well. He did note that he had to go ahead and look at his performa to go ahead and see how could you go ahead and take this right here in the first floor and find some more parking stalls, lose a few units, and perhaps go ahead and make this happen within the building itself. Next. So you'll see right here on the second and third floors, the layout as far as what you might go ahead and expect on the second and third floors. In the yellow, you see an elevator. In the orange, you see stairwells. And then in the blues and reds and purples, you see the individual units that are projected for this. Next. Get to the recommendation later, but as far as the conditions, there are 7 conditions that were noted for this. One, submitted site plans to remain in general conformance of what has been provided. So they're not submitting the actual site plan here, but if this were to be approved, that'd be in general conformance of what's been provided. 2, the maximum building height shall be 3 stories, no greater than 40 feet in total. 3, individual storage units shall not contain more vehicles inside of them. 4, a minimum of 3 indoor parking spaces are provided to users. The applicant must be sufficient additional off-street parking to meet these minimum standards. 5, submission of information regarding the specific custom sheet metal. It was just noted it would be that way. We don't have to know what that is. Be approved them by staff during review. 6, it's much like the item we just had, is also owned by the RDA. So we need to go ahead and get their approval from the RDA as well from final site plans. And then 7, through typical compliance with all the regulations of the.
And then with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 8. Consideration with possible action on the request for a conditional use permit at 1200 South Broadway to allow a self-service storage facility in a special purpose residential light industrial district submitted by Philip Barson Corporation applicant and Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property.
Okay, so as staff, we debated this as far as whether we felt this would be one worthy of approval or recommending denial. We felt the overall pros as far as bringing forth something that was function as a node on a corner, works still within this limited space, kept parking hidden using quality materials, and offering us a potential product that people keep on telling us they need to go ahead and have with storage worked well within this district right here as essentially a test case to go ahead and work especially for other parts of the city. But this right here, it fits within the SRLI district as far as conditional uses in general for self-storage. This just brings a lot more intensity, if we compare it to car use, which obviously would not ever work on the site. It was just, say, 3 garage stalls that were stored in these. So we're recommending approval.
So then those parking spots inside, those just for people to basically get their things into the storage unit, that's not, there aren't gonna be cars permanently parked in there, they're just coming in, bringing their stuff, picking up stuff, leaving kind of thing.
Correct. Unlike, you say, a typical storage unit where you just drive on into your garage stall or park right next to it,
Right.
you need a place to go ahead and park your vehicle, yes.
And was it something that they needed to have a neighborhood meeting for?
No.
No, okay. And you haven't heard from anyone?
We have not heard from anybody on this call.
And I'm assuming that the design standards that they're looking at are something that we've also discussed as far as what the shipyard. Are there specific design standards for the shipyard area, or is there not any?
Not
things
this,
like that?
not
No.
far, right?
But it's a
Really that.
But it's a very good point that there's a lot of units going into the shipyard right now, and when you look at those storage units in there, they're very similar to like what you find in the basement of an apartment. So if you got a small unit, you got a place to store it.
Well, and honestly, in the neighborhood that it's in, I have a property close to here, and my tenants do not have storage, like something like this would actually work out for them. I'm just trying to, this 3 stories, 40, I mean, 40 feet doesn't sound super tall until you're standing next to a 40-foot building in a neighborhood with all
Certainly.
houses.
And this is why with being the corner lot, being at the bookend of a lot where I felt this could make a bit of difference. Now, 40 feet, mind you, is to go ahead and give a bit of a buffer right here. Applicant did not supply the final as heights. We know it's 3 stories. It's giving a bit of a buffer. For anybody for just typical uses, 35 feet is the max.
And there's no stop sign. The next step, the stop sign's at 9th and Broadway.
Correct.
So there's no stop sign at 8th and Broadway. Okay, and that park is right over behind there too.
Are there from the images here, and I don't know this particular location, are there single family homes right next door, like 1-story teeny single family homes? And
That was behind, straight behind it. You know that.
Right, so we have-
that's what I saw.
Someone I know.
We have the alley behind it for access. There is a single family that is right next to it that is 1 story.
And Michael's showing me, yeah, thank you.
It has a
That's
business.
really a great screen for.
One, I feel like it's got that weird, I
Like TV
walk
player or
that,
something.
yeah,
Oh,
that
things
weird
like that, okay.
Pops, PAAP,
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy, right?
And Lindauer here across the street as well. Yeah, it's a hodgepodge, and that's kind of what the district
It
is.
is,
It's
right?
a hodgepodge, yeah.
We're right across the street, we're parallel, yes, there's a car.
Oh, no, it's straight across, you're
Look
right.
at this right here, this is a car.
It's like a repair kind of thing. It's not any kind of, yeah.
Machine shop.
So the building that we're seeing here that looks like a rather small home, is that a residence?
Yes.
And it's gonna have to look up at 3-story.
With this, yes, yes,
Yeah.
Is the applicant on the
he is.
motion open?
Motion by Commissioner Braddock, second by Commissioner Vinsky. All those in favor to open the floor? Any opposed? All right. And I guess if the applicant can unmute yourself, please. We have questions.
Hi,
Hi, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
sure. Philip Barsan, 419 North Broadway.
And what was,
I'm not sure it's a question. I'm just trying to imagine how I would feel if I was a resident in that little house. Right next door to this big 3-story metal building. Have you any thoughts, Mr. Barson, about how to minimize the obstacle for your next door neighbor?
I think ultimately we're, working with my team, my design team, we're trying to put these buildings together in a manner that blends into the community. That's essentially why we designed them so small. We're not looking to be putting, these projects that have, the standard sheet metal that, is usually roofing as a facade. But the other part of this is when we look at this product in terms of where it can be within the city of Green Bay, it's an urban product. It has to be in an urban area. And ultimately, with the amount of development that's happening in the, North Broadway and even Ashwaubenon, this was a fit. When we were looking at sites, and also additionally the zoning, obviously we can't go into a residential zone. I think this area is up and coming. If that's the proper way, I think we're gonna have the coal piles over there taken care of hopefully within the next 10 years, maybe sooner. So essentially, I think bringing a product like this to this neighborhood would help. I'm not sure how the homeowner would feel. I feel it's been fair that, there was a sign put on that property. If anybody had something they wanted to share. I mean, I'm not aware of anybody having anything to share, so unless John's aware of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Since the alder is here, can we ask Alder Johnson if he has any comments himself or the neighbors?
Yeah, so I haven't heard anything from any of the neighbors there. Philip, Brian Johnson, nice to see you, sort of.
Sort of.
Just maybe one question that I sort of had posed, and I think you're right. I think this is an area that will hopefully benefit in the next generation from some development along that corridor. And of course, I'm always more intrigued with urban developments by activated spaces. So you have that lobby that's kind of called out in the corner. Would you be open to doing some type of retail or other commercial leasable space in lieu of the lobby?
Yeah, I think I'd be open to it. I don't know if the size would be something that, I guess my issue, what I'm going to is, I know downtown zoning does not really have a parking requirement. And being in this conditional use area, I'm not sure if we could fit any more parking on that site. And financially, when we ran the numbers, it didn't make sense to lease spaces. So we're going to try to incorporate all that parking within the first floor, and the retail space is going to be probably, or I suppose the lobby would be probably less than 400 square feet. So unless somebody wants to lease 400 square feet, we're going to have a lobby there probably.
But look, for what it's worth, commercial trends are suggesting micro retail is going to be more in demand, moving forward. So I don't think it's out of the question. You could monetize that space and, but I also, as I looked at the plan, I mean, since you asked, Michael, it's at first when Cheryl Rainier-Wig shared it with me, I was kind of like, storage units, right? And this, I wasn't a fan. And she said, no, just see the plan first. And of course, when I saw the plan, I agree. It's a decent design for an urban corridor. Nobody likes storage, yet everybody wants it. And so if you can find a way to reasonably accommodate it, make it aesthetically appealing. It's a product that I haven't really seen in our market. Right, we see storage units, but not of this variety. So the only thing that I would just add is I think this is something we could work with Philip just outside of what you guys need to do. I broadly speaking, I don't mind it, given that I haven't received any neighborhood feedback, and that there is that need for that in our community, but also just if we could work on the potential for activating that corner, I would like it a little bit more, I think. But I certainly wouldn't oppose it the way that it's proposed, the way it stands in front of you. So.
Thanks, Brian. I just wanted to add briefly, essentially the objective of this was to fill in the storage void for future, developments that are going to be completed here, even at the rail yard and obviously in Ashwaubenon with the housing. And I've talked to developers, and a lot of these guys need more storage for those tenants, and that's the whole idea behind this building, and even the design, as John mentioned briefly, to make it look more like an apartment building as much as we can, at least, and then hopefully serve these customers. And one last point, I just want to let you guys know this was a deal that a client had reinvestment funds, and we were looking to continue reinvesting in Green Bay, and we believe this is a good site to continue moving forward.
All right, thank you so much.
Question. Being unfamiliar with this type of building, I guess I have two questions. One, will the first floor be adapted with, air movement to accommodate cars going in and out and people who would sit there? Because 3 cars going in relatively, next to each other, that's a lot of, exhaust. And it would, if there's no special air movement, it would just go on up. That's one. And the second thing is this locked out? Do you need a key to get into this building or is it open?
So the first question, the answer to that is that the first floor will be open. It's secured. It's more of a, how would I put this, a carport design. So the facade, obviously, from the outside, you would think it's probably closed, but the first floor is open. It's not temperature controlled, and then it is secured. So there is a gate, which will be off of the alley, and the only way to get in will be through a code or a key fob.
Oh, so literally there'll be an open big door there.
I wouldn't say a door, maybe an automated gate of some sort. I don't think we're gonna do an overhead door.
So it would be open to the air in and out.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It's not glass enclosed then,
Okay.
which was my assumption from the rendering.
Yeah, I think the lobby area will be enclosed entirely, but the
Okay,
rest will be more of a carport.
so then to get up to the second and third floors, would that be through a locked door or is the whole building open?
Yeah, so the elevator and all the doors work on a fob, on a key fob. So essentially, pretty much any door that you want to go through, you have to use a fob for.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant?
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Braddock, second by Vice Chair Miller. Close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I ask staff, please, why the Shipyard District Neighborhood, why the Shipyard Neighborhood Association wasn't consulted, or there was no consultation with them or meeting with them? That's some of the other applicants.
Right, so we do that on projects that are larger scale, and with this being such a small scale in general. Didn't feel that for this one, we need to go ahead and have that being decided to this.
Because it's a CUP, not like a PUD.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So,
I guess my surprise in all of this is it's very different than the rest of the neighborhood. It's a lot taller than the rest of the neighborhood. From looking at the maps, it's all kind of very small homes scattered around that section. I think there's a good need for storage. I think, that all the principles of the project are good. I'm just shocked that there's no one here to be concerned or speak to the project, I guess. So my concern is that there would be other neighbors that might not have been consulted, or the neighborhood might not know this project is coming. Where I would like to have seen some feedback from a neighborhood meeting of neighbors, just to find out.
I could maybe speak to that, Michael. So, I think broadly speaking, in that particular corridor, it may seem like it's out of place, but if you actually ever drive down that street, this is a very mixed neighborhood. You have everything from large scale industrial uses to small bars to single family homes, to double, it is a mix. And it's also a neighborhood that has a high concentration of rental units. So you're talking about investment properties, and now I don't know what the situation is of that particular home next door. But just that block and that neighborhood in general, you see a lot of investment properties and landlords that probably, could care less either way. Whereas a homeowner may take a different perspective. So I just at least wanted to provide that clarity for you. And in fact, there was at one time, I know a city staff and I'm sure probably still a continuing dialogue, and Jonathan can certainly speak to this, but of almost rewriting the code over here. So they kind of had this residential type of code to it, because it really is a mixture of everything in this area. And so from that perspective, I don't think the use is necessarily, incompatible with what's already there. it's certainly the difference is that this is a new structure. And there really hasn't been to date that I'm aware of any type of like discussion around, is there a particular type of use that we only want to authorize moving forward? And so the reality is with the way that setup is down there, you could probably propose any project and it would be compatible with that neighborhood. I think it's really one of those few anomalies in our city. That I think you'd be hard pressed to find another condition like that somewhere else, but I just at least wanted to paint a little bit of picture for what that neighborhood composition is like.
And that is a good point. For zoning for that area allows industrial uses by right. Singles and twos require home rule approval. So it's meant to be, as you can tell by the comp plan, it's meant to be an industrial area that has housing kind of integrated to make.
Transition that goes.
For residents.
If I can add in on that too, I worked for the city for 5 years and in that time, I know I tore down at least 3 houses in this area that were blighted. That eventually got sold to the RDA. Basically, if you see green space in this area, it was a blighted house that was torn down, acquired by the RDA. But from my knowledge, the history of it is that the zoning as it is to protect the houses that are there, right? But the idea at the time when that went through was to transition to industrial. So it's as a house comes out, housing is not really gonna go back in. That's kind of what my interpretation of that was at the time, so.
With the caveat of perhaps work-live units.
Right,
Was a
exactly.
focal
Something
point of
of a
discussion.
different- It wasn't gonna be a single family home.
Right.
So, because even with my time with the city, there were some proposals for that never really came through because of the idea of that transition.
I would like to suggest some compassion though for the guy who's gonna be sitting right next door to this thing when it starts going up. This is a classic example of what's good, what's part of the greater good. This seems like a perfect addition looking forward, but that poor one person or 2 people or however many are in the family are being sacrificed. And I would hope there might be a member of the staff that perhaps the alderman who would speak to them and give them at least some forewarning that, by the way, when the jackhammers start in another week, this is what's happening. I don't know how that would be done. I know I wouldn't want to do it.
So see, to your point though, I'm looking at it, is this a house or commercial site? It's a business.
I was asking before whether it was a residence and was told it was a residence.
You know what it looks like? It looks like a tiny little yellow house, but no, that's where that pop sign is, that TV repair place. So I mean, it's probably like a live-in kind of, I live work kind of thing, but I'm guessing more. So
Yes, add on to that, I agree, that's a large scale thing next to what's existing there. So I was gonna see if we could add in something with, because there's going to be security lighting.
Yep.
And I know that goes through probably through the site plan review, but just a condition that, on any side that's facing a current residential use or perceived residential use, that the lighting be limited, or that, that it does not, the lighting does not extend past the property line. Not sure how to add that in, but.
Yeah, if you go back to the rendering, doesn't it show something behind?
For light girl. But for light girl, it's put candles on the property line, there can be some, it's limited. But not fully, it's not zero. On the product line,
That
so.
would make sense, streetlights are in the.
Yeah, it's beyond the ambient light. So what you basically do is take a shot when the lights are all on, have them turn the lights off, take another shot.
Very scientific.
Yeah. So the streetlights are taken into account. I think it's 1/4 of a foot candle at property.
well, I mean, there's like a 20-foot fence right there, so.
That's what I was looking at. Is that a fence or is
That's
this part
not,
of
I
the
think that's
rendering?
just a rendering.
Just making it look pretty.
And then no, this rendering right here
Is,
is not fully, what you're seeing to the left of it would be. A house that's not, you want to just focus on the actual, the building itself. Yeah.
well, and I'm sorry I misspoke. So where does the shipyard end? Because you're talking shipyard's 3rd Street, this is 8th, so I mean. That's 5 blocks.
I think the neighborhood technically goes down to right by Richard Cranium's.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
where
so
the
that's
boundary
Fifth.
is. Yeah.
So 5th, so 3 blocks, all right.
I guess, so I didn't catch that, John, was the lighting, is that something that you need to add in as a condition, or is that something that gets taken care of?
You can add as a condition right here to make it more robust as far as standards go.
And they don't have a full site plan at this point, but do we know, are they planning to do buffering, that kind of? Or are there requirements in the
Right.
site plan that goes?
So there's requirements as far as, because the parking will be all inside, so we're not going to lose it in that part right there.
Right.
We have our side yard setbacks. I believe it's 6 feet right there. Which for a building of this size. Not that large right there. So more could be added to go ahead and put more buffering into this as a requirement.
One thing that seems obvious, not so obvious, but if that were a 2-story house. It would be a similar effect to that neighbor, because they can't see above the 1.5 stories. So the fact that this is 3 full stories. You know, is not that much different than a 2-story house in perspective of that neighbor next door. So I guess, and you need that 3rd floor to make this viable. So, and I understand the concept of someone is there, but this is, you know, an open property. It's a 2-story house or 3-story development.
Oh, no, there's a
It
window.
affects that property.
I don't think there's even a window on the side, it's next to a driveway.
I guess I appreciate the discussion. I'm pretty comfortable with it as is and would make a motion to approve.
I will second that.
So we have a motion by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Do we have any further discussion?
Without going for the more robust, I like that word. Proposal that John was suggesting, may we simply assume that working on the site plan. The protection from people next door and roundabout will be on the staff's minds. Thank you, John.
Well, then that neighbor to the south will get a letter after this meeting is done stating what the planning commission had said. We'll see, they may react to that.
But they had received a letter.
Yes. Yep. One, right, but they get one after.
And there's a sign in the yard too, right?
There's-
Like the zoning.
Yep.
With the phone number, okay.
Thank you for that reminder.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Braddock. Ravinsky, sorry, I can. My bad. Commissioner Ravinsky. Any further discussion? No, hearing none, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for May 2nd. Moving on to item 9, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. We'll now open the public hearing on item number 9, public hearing on the request to establish a planned unit development at the 2500 block of University Avenue to permit the development of multiple family residential use submitted by Gorman and Co. applicant and Meyer Family Investment Corp. Property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're looking right here at the corner of University and Romney. This is by the old Packland packaging site. Next please. So you see the future land use plan, this is commercial. This area was also part of the University Avenue corridor plan. This area right here in that plan called for a mix of uses of commercial, mixed use and residential along this corridor on the south side of the road. So staff feels that what is being proposed here is within consistent with the goals of the University Avenue corridor plan. Next. And then right now you'll see the zoning, it's a C1 zoning as it's underlaid. And the government company is going to come in and put a 4-story building on the site.
So familiar. That's in the back of my way.
Well, that's the next. You can see the site at the corner right now. It's 1.8 acres. So as we'll just go ahead and kick that can right now. So Gorman came through with the plan over on Military Avenue. That site itself is about 1.2 acres. You can recall the issues that we're having with some of the green space and parking issues on that site. The site with being 1.8 acres fits this type of development a bit better compared to what we had over on Military Avenue. Next, so you'll see right here, this is like concept. It is a bit different from what you saw in your amended site packet back over on Friday. There were a few changes to go ahead and note. You'll note over in the northwest corner, there was a serpentine entryway that came to the property. That's been removed. That was for ADA purposes. They moved it to the back of the property to go ahead and enter off the entrance off of Rothy with the sidewalk right there. So what you're seeing is University Avenue North, Rothy on the west, parking 60 stalls or so, which is a minimum requirement on the back along with bicycle parking. Green space is well over the requirement. Now, a lot of this is bioretention. This is on a hill itself, and it was a green space to begin with. Unlike the last one we saw back in Military that did not have any sort of stormwater management that was seen visibly, there would have been some underneath. This right here, because of it being a green space existing right now, has to meet different requirements for quantity and quality on the site compared to what was there over on Military itself. There'd be entrances that would come off both Rothy and University for automobiles. And part of the requirements that we're saying in the PUD would be to extend the Rothy sidewalk down to the south parcel line. Next. So what you see here is pretty familiar from what you have seen before. It's not the exact same thing, but it's close. Same as materials, same as unit count, 48 units itself, townhomes, ground floor with family services, space in the ground floor, this being a C1 lot that could convert into commercial space in the future if things were to go ahead and change. Next. So go ahead and see here some of the layouts, pretty similar to what was before. Where you'd have some of the 2-story townhomes, the front along University Avenue, and a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Next. So with this right here, this is just a diagram as far as showing where parks are in the area. That was a discussion here that came up last time around. The closest one here is Bear Creek Parkways. You'll note one of the requirements is to have a sidewalk that goes along Rothy. The neighbors to the south of the development agreements go ahead and extend improved areas from the end of Rothy to the park parcel down over at Bear Creek Parkway. So they would go ahead and take advantage of that then as well. All the neighbors in the area could go ahead and take advantage of the improved access that be happening here in the future with the property to the south itself. So if you take that in mind, it's about 1,100 feet or so from the property down to Bear Creek Parkway. Just showing a few more options here. You have Triangle Sports area, which is a part of Bear Creek. That ends up being about 2,000 feet. Part of that though, no sidewalk. So keep that in mind. If we're looking for a handicap accessible way, taking on the sidewalks, that becomes about 3,000 feet to go all the way around up by Festival and back down to the neighborhood with sidewalks to get there. I want to note that the slope that gets down from the top of the hill, where you go broadly back down, is one of the most pronounced slopes we have in the area. And then finally, you have Canyon Park off the northwest, which is somewhat less than a mile, but goes through quite a bit of traffic at University Avenue. With this in mind, the PUD itself has a few changes that are different. So why are we going through PUD itself? It's a C1. With C1 on the first floor, you're allowed to have residential above, but the entire first floor has to go ahead and be commercial. This is asking for it to be both commercial, office space, and residential on the first one. Secondly, it's asking for a change of the max height to be 50 feet for the 4 stories of this building. Similar to what was asked for back on the Military Avenue project. The setback on the eastern parking lot, part of the parking lot, to be decreased from 20 feet to 6 feet in that area. As far as your buffering area, that's a landscape part of your site plan review code. As far as space and topography, They do note a retaining wall in that area, but the request to go ahead and make that area shrunk right there. Fourth, making sure the sidewalk connection occurs then from University down to Rothy. Applicants did provide a landscape plan here today. What we happen to have seen would not fully go ahead and meet with all the different codes of landscaping, but after talking with them, they can make some improvements to go ahead and make that work within the code itself. Beyond that 6 foot setback over on the eastern property line. So we'll have a recommendation, but we'll wait for that later on.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who is wishing to speak.
Take my cue this time. Ted Matcom, Wisconsin Market President, Gorman and Company, 200 North Main Street, Oregon, Wisconsin. Good to see you again. The reason we're here is we had some unexpected events happen in the March 21st Common Council meeting when we brought this at a prior set at 216 Military Avenue. Luckily, can't believe it, we actually found a site that scored the same. WIDA actually approved it at their board meeting this last week. And we're excited to be here to ask for approval on this new site. So it's the same building that's relocated. So.
All right, no, thank you very much. This is the public hearing portion of this, so we'll probably have questions next. Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 10. Consideration with possible action on the request to establish a planned unit development at the 2500 block of University Avenue to permit the development of multiple family residential use submitted by Gorman and Co. applicant and Meyer Family Investment Corp. Property owner.
So with this, you have the draft PUD. Everything's the amended PUD that was put forth in your packet on late Friday. Nothing has changed that, and we recommend approval of it.
I have a comment from Alder Stevens, who called me today, who expressed his approval of this application. He would like to see it approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Vinsky to approve. Any further discussion?
I want to thank John for coming up with the map showing the play areas that are nearby. They don't have to cross University Avenue to get to them. Yay.
And you can just walk right back through the neighborhood to get to Barrett's Creek. I mean, I walked through Clement just to get back there. So.
And that little Rothy area there too is a real nice neighborhood.
I think, you know, and I think it responds to all the concerns we had at the last aspect of the military.
And adding Luther's Family Services as well. That was a really smart idea.
Just one clarification on the slide before, they weren't conditions, but once those have already been incorporated.
It was already incorporated into the PUD itself. Yep.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for May 2nd. Moving on to item number 11, consideration with possible action on the request to vacate a public cul-de-sac located at Vine Street and Ricky Street, submitted by Mao and Associates on behalf of Habitat for Humanity property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is part of a couple steps of an application process known as Habitat Homestead. So this is part of a large plat that we're processing. There is this vacation request. There is a variance request that is also in this packet. And at our next meeting, there is additional use permit for townhomes. So quite a few applications for this project. So an overview, this is Lime Kiln Road here, Manitowoc Road. So this is tucked into that neighborhood, a little cul-de-sac here. The request is to vacate this cul-de-sac. So the exhibit gives the particulars on that, which probably means very little. The plat, however, helps a lot. So this is where the existing cul-de-sac is. With the vacation of this, the land would get divided out, half to the property owner on one side, the rest to this development here. The reason for this vacation is to allow for the road continuation here, Ricky Drive, to continue to connect onto Richmond Street. And then also to provide more developable area for this housing development. So some of the particulars, you're looking at 14 lots and 1 outlot for stormwater management, which is the one that's here closest to the cul-de-sac. Of these lots, 8 of them are going to be single family homes in the traditional sense, and then 6 will be attached single family homes, so the townhome style. The variance request and then the street vacation request both need to be approved in order for the plat to be approved. It is only the cul-de-sac right now is only accessible for 2 properties, the one that's in question and then an apartment complex, which is right here. As part of the conditions of the vacation request, we're requiring that access still be provided to this parcel. There have been no objections from the other property owner. We have them sign off on the applications now that they're aware of the vacation request. So with that, we are recommending approval. Put that down. For some of these conditions. So that first is that access has to be addressed in the developer's agreement in part of that vacation. Another some more water utility that if anything needs to be abandoned, moved around, they would take care of that as well. Same thing for WPS. They have some existing facilities that they would like easement granted or facilities moved. And then the state with our storm and sanitary from the city, also through the developer's agreement. So some utility things, but those would be worked out through the development process anyway. So we are recommending approval of that request.
All right, thank you.
So I will be excusing myself from any discussion or voting on this as I am employed by Greater Green Bay Habitat for Humanity.
And for disclosure, I will be voting on this matter. I do not have any financial stake, but I am on the board of Greater Green Bay Habitat for Humanity.
I would like to move approval.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Vice Chair Miller. Do you have any further discussion?
I do make donations. We haven't done
They get money from me, I don't get money from them.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if you had someone here to speak. So motion open. the
We
floor.
can open the floor for one
section.
Seems like no, please don't do this to me.
If you want to hear from me.
All
Hi,
right.
Steve from Mountain Associates.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. All those in favor of opening the floor. Go ahead.
Steve Beta with Mountain Associates. I've been working with Habitat for Humanity on the project. As Stephanie mentioned, there's a lot of wheels in motion with this thing. We've been working on it for a long time. The vacation of the cul-de-sac is just a small portion of it. Trying to fit the right housing in there, the right people. We had a neighborhood meeting over at the Salvation Army Croc Center. I think we had about 4 neighbors that came to it just to kind of inform them and talk about it as part of this process. So they are well informed of what, what's all going on there and how it's going to happen. The street's going to connect through all the standard comments. Of course, it's nice because it's dead ended now, but it's not really a huge neighborhood when we ultimately connect that through the street. So, but if you have any questions, it's I don't want to call it fairly straightforward because there's a lot of components to this one, but it should work out. It's a good project for that area to fill that in and finish it off. So, okay.
Motion closed.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Daniels to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I'm sorry. We had a motion and a second and everything. Okay. Commissioner Bremer, Vice Chair Miller. All right, now I remember. Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward from the city council for May 2nd. Moving on to item number 12, consideration with possible action on the request to deviate from section 44-554, minimum lot size and minimum lot width by the Green Bay Municipal Code submitted by Mao and Associates on behalf of Habitat for Humanity property owner.
Thank you. So same location here. This is the cul-de-sac that you just vacated. This parcel is the parcel that's going to be developed. So this is sort of an infill lot, sort of not an infill lot. So we didn't, by how our code is written, we couldn't use the infill standards because it's a new plat, but those do come into play here. So just for a little background, the area that we're looking at, this is the future land use. So the comprehensive plan calls for medium to high density housing. Fairly fitting with this neighborhood. It's a good mix of single family homes, duplexes, multifamily, some commercial in the area. A lot of the zoning is either R3, R1, and then very close to this commercial corridor here. So again, pretty solid neighborhood in this area, but very close to a lot of other amenities. So as we're looking at this plat, there are a couple of variances that are being requested as part of it. We do have the variance sections in what are they called? I'm losing my brain. Yes, in here it tells you what a variance could be approved for. So that's all listed in your staff report. The specifics of those are though, so of the 14 lots, again, 8 of those are for single family detached homes. 4 of those lots are smaller than our minimum square footage requirement, which is 7,500 square feet for the R1 district. So everything with the star is under that. Those sizes are shown here. As you can see, that's not too much substantially smaller. Some are on a curve, some are closer to that stormwater management facility that's required as part of this plat. And then looking throughout the rest of the neighborhood, so it looks at around 300 feet, the average sizes are pretty small. They can go down to as much as 5,000 square feet for some of the homes in the area. So it wouldn't be horribly out of place. Same thing with the minimum lot width. The code calls for 75 feet minimum. None of these meet that. Staff is very supportive of that. However, we kind of looked at this as like that infill guidance that we have. So for an infill, you can go down to 50 feet. The average is 49.94, almost 50 feet. So for me, I don't feel like it goes that far away from the intention of the code, because just because it's a new plat and it's new parcels, it still feels like infill property to us. So we're kind of using that as our guidance. So with that, we would be comfortable. Also this, because it is that kind of like a micro plat within a neighborhood, it can make its own feeling. It's going to have specific housing design, specific setbacks. It'll give itself its own identity being on that new road extension. So we don't feel this would be intrusive to the neighborhood by any means. If we as staff have been supportive for a number of years of reducing some of our lot widths and lot sizes. The code is, we feel, written fairly suburban. You're looking at these huge lot sizes for things that you don't really need. There probably should be either separate designation for things that are within platted areas where it can be smaller, or we should just kind of throw out some of those maximums and let the market and the neighborhoods kind of decide what those infills should look like. So generally speaking, we kind of are supportive of this development anywhere, but in particular for this neighborhood, because it already kind of fits in with the character. And it would define its own character as it gets developed too. So with that, we are recommending approval of the request as stated.
Thank you, Steph. So then it looks like Ricky Drive kind of does a little curve. 'Cause it's not going straight across. If it went straight across, those lots would be way too small.
Very, very much too
Right.
small. Okay. But they've been working with our Department of Public Works to make sure that curve is done correctly. So that's all being
Right.
sorted through the planning process as well.
Well, and 49 feet, I think about Kellogg Street near downtown, those are all 48, 40, my property in Kellogg is 48. Allard right by West High, those are all 50.
Yep.
So like, it's a normal, it doesn't even feel tight, but probably in comparison to the other suburban style properties that are out there, it might, but that's not small.
Yeah, the average frontage for the neighborhood is either between 50 and 70 feet. So most of them don't even hit 75 anyway.
Yeah.
So it's mostly for our new lots, which this doesn't feel like a new lot.
50 doesn't feel that tight. It feels like a normal downtown kind of.
Agreed, no, that's 50 feet wide too.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Bremer. Any further discussion?
I would just also on the record, I will not be voting or discussing.
All right, so one abstention.
And as previous.
Oh, got it, all right.
I usually say that.
All right, on the board, no money. give money, don't get any.
You got it.
All right. All right. I've already grabbed Commissioner Braddock and second by Commissioner Bremer. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? And one abstention. All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for May 2nd.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 13, which is a public hearing, and this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. I'll now open the public hearing on item number 13. Public hearing on the request to amend portions of the zoning code, chapter 44, articles 3, 7, 8, 9, 16, and 21. Related to dog-friendly business submitted by the Community and Economic Development Department.
Side note, I don't think I've worked on anything super fun in a number of years, so I was really excited to do this. We as staff have gotten a couple of requests related to like, doggy daycares, bark and brew type of situations, and our code was either silent or very restrictive on those things. So for years, we've been looking at amending this to open it up to other businesses, to instead of making them jump through hoops, it would just be something that's in our code that's a little bit easier to follow. So with that, we have a text amendment to take care of some of those measures. The two largest things would be the addition of these new designations of land use. So commercial business with dog area, and that's where we're thinking of a bar that has a place for your dog to come play. And then commercial dog daycare. This surprisingly was not in our code at all. So they technically either don't exist or they're under some other umbrella and they've just been like kind of finagling. So now we have them actually defined as what they are, separate from another animal facility. With that, we had to amend some of our land use tables and our codes to allow them in these districts. So downtown, all the commercial, LIBP, and then our residential. And then they would be conditionally permitted in OR and NC. We did that because those are technically like some of our buffering ones. We want to make sure that we have a little bit more control over those districts than the other ones. But these seem to be the most applicable districts for just allowing them by right. So with that, if they are allowed within those districts or conditionally permitted within those districts, we have now added all of this, which is in your packet. But to just go through a couple of those, it requires soundproofing. Any sort of overnight kennel has to be enclosed within a building. Kennels that are outside are only for day use. They are required to have 100 square feet per dog that's at the facility. For the dog daycares, we have some pretty strict fencing requirements. We want to make sure it's far enough away from residential that it's soundproof. They have to be 6 foot tall. They have to be wooden. There has to be a lockable gate on it. It has to be 30 feet away from any residentially zoned or used property and 15 from any other type of use. And that the outside hours are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is the same as the city's quiet hours. And they are prohibited in the front yard. So we really try to play out every scenario. Where's the dog going to be? How would you get into that? How could they get out of it? If it's your neighbor, how mad would you be? Like if it was that close to you? So that's what we considered with that section of the code. And then for the commercial businesses with the dog area, we're thinking a bookstore, something that has an area where you can bring your pets. So it still have a fenced in area, but we thought that one should be a little bit more see-through. So that way it's more friendly. It's got the, you're trying to draw people in with that use versus keep people out. Both of the fencing requirements do have exceptions that John as a zoning administrator can make as well. So if something comes in and, still feels like it's meeting the intent of the code, like the safety of the code, that he would be able to vary that. Fence can be no closer than 5 feet to any property line, walkway, or parking area. We're thinking little kids and their little hands and the dogs and the mouse. And then same with the hours of limitation. There are some noise level caveats in here. Again, measuring decibels. I'm not sure that we do that, but someone in City Hall does. So that's good.
We can do that.
We have about animal waste where it can be picked up, deposited, sealed, all those things, and that they have to be supervised in some capacity when they're in an outdoor area. So if that's with technology or someone actually being out there, so that way the dogs, if anything were to happen. This is specific to dogs. We wrote it that way on purpose. There are some other facilities, like cat cafes and that kind of stuff, but usually it's just one cat that the owner has. Like we haven't had any requests or suggestions that it should be expanded to other types of pets. But we found a lot of people interested in doing dog specific things. So that's where we're starting to see how it works. And if it goes well and we have other requests, we can expand the section of the code. So we are also proposing that animal hospitals and vets are allowed to have outdoor runs in enclosure areas. They are not currently allowed to. But we would be keeping that, let's see. Boarding, animal boarding, kennel and animal grooming would still be interior only. So those are all the things.
I want to see the first person doing an outdoor camera.
Yeah. That'd be so loud.
Workers. All right. Thanks so much, Seth. With this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would wish to speak.
The dogs would bring them out.
Yeah.
Is there anyone wishing? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 14, consideration with possible action to amend portions of the zoning code. Chapter 44, articles 3, 7, 8, 9, 16, and 21 related to dog friendly business submitted by the Community and Economic Development Departments.
We recommend.
What are your numerals?
approval Based on the draft text amendment in your code. All right. I think it's-
Motion by Commissioner Rinsky, a second by Commissioner Braddock. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Legally takes that.
Fair. Really going downhill. All right, number 15. Consideration with possible action on a request to release a 6-foot by 300-foot utility easement in the 100 block of East Mason Street to accommodate the Astor One Development, Miller Land Investment LLC, and Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property owners and Green Bay Department of Public Works applicants.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, my name is Dina Mooney and I am the new planner one. So this is my first agenda item. It's a great initiation. I'd like to thank everybody for being very gentle with me as I start here. So this is basically a cleanup measure from a project that the city has been working on. In the PowerPoint presentation here is that map that's referenced, the 1981 map, and you can see in the highlighted area is the 6-foot by 300-foot utility easement. And then you can kind of get a visual for how the property used to look with the warehousing in the front, which is owned by Miller Land Investments, and then the property on the other side is owned by the RDA and is now the location of the Fox River Trail. So there's a aerial photo kind of showing where it is in the relocated trail. And then the future land use is showing it as parks area. We're not handling anything with that at this time. We're just trying to get rid of the easement to make the site developable, and then whatever comes up, we would take care of as we go along. And then as far as the zoning, it has the downtown one district, as well as the parkland to obviously accommodate those potential new uses. We did send it out to staff or for review to see if anybody had any objections to removing the easement. The only comment that came back was from the Green Bay Water Utility. If you can go back to the next step, yes. There is a rather large main water easement that's in yellow that runs on the north property line. So the easement cannot contain removal of that portion that would go through that 6-foot area. So anyway, our recommendation is to approve the request with that condition to make sure that they would then recreate a new easement to make sure that the water department can access the river. Okay, that's it. I don't know if I'm missing anything.
Thank you very much.
The one thing I would add is in the end of 2022, December 2022, the comp plan was changed to downtown and also. If you recall. And
Okay,
He'll chomp at the bit to say something.
is he?
No.
I can just provide just a quick update. This is obviously a continuing effort to get the CSM updated to allow the property swap with the relocated bike trail. This has been a long time coming. We've been working on, we finally got the property boundaries correct. Now we're simply trying to get the easements correct. Once the easements are correct, we will probably be facilitating the land transfer between the RDA and the private owner to essentially to correct that situation. Right now, the bike trail is essentially on private property, which can't be good for the owner in case anything would happen there. So going to be getting that done. And then basically this will complete the requirements of the development agreement, the phase 1 that was originally adopted with the developer. Folks will recall, Mr. Miller unfortunately passed away last summer. So we're dealing with his land trust right now. So they're probably not planning on directly proceeding with a development on this site, but we'll be probably be putting the site up for sale once the land swap is complete. So
Motion to approve with contingency recommended by staff.
Second. I did want to come up with a bunch of questions to make it difficult. We're good.
All right, so we got a motion by Commissioner Braddock and he's second by Commissioner Vinsky. Do we have any further questions for staff? Complicated questions? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then I'll move forward to city council for May 2nd. And item number 16, consideration with possible action regarding On Broadway Inc. Business Improvement District's budgeted versus actual year-end reporting for 2022.
Hello.
I should bring swag bag.
You were the one.
This is Brooke, our marketing director, acting like a marketing director. I asked for copies of our annual report and she's like, well, give them canned koozies and covers and canned spags and. Wow. So you guys could take one and pass them around.
I think I'm trying to win one of these.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me here. As I'm sure you're well aware, I think it was February that you took up the other business improvement district plans. Unfortunately, I wasn't available for that meeting. I was out of town. So this was the date that we settled on to come and talk to you. Good meeting tonight. I think it's nice to see a lot of really good projects kind of fly through. So kudos to staff for the hard work and making those decisions easy. So we're here to talk about the business improvement district plan, which for us operates a little bit differently. Of course, the annual report that was passed around to you all, that includes On Broadway as an organization as a whole, the business improvement district in particular, which has a separate board of directors. It really contributes. This past year was about 5% of the total value of On Broadway's budget. Some years it can be a little higher, but just to give you some perspective on what part of our budget the bid actually comprises. So within that plan, and I'm just speaking to the items within the plan. Of course, if you have questions about anything outside of that related On Broadway as a whole, happy to field that afterwards. So lighting was budgeted for tree lighting in the winter months. We budget 15,000. We invested about 15,000 into that. The balance really comes from other programs that On Broadway raises money for. So when you talk about leverage, that's kind of what we're really shooting for with a lot of our bid investments. Annual maintenance. By the way, this is going to be one of the easiest reports you've ever seen. It's like budgeted as much, we got this much. Annual maintenance budgeted $25,000. There again, we actually spent more than that. I believe the number is right around 50,000 if I recall correctly, but that's basically all of your decor, your pole banners, weeding, things of that nature. Public art, we allocated $15,000. We spent closer to $50,000 on mural installations and repainting our benches and trash cans and a few other small projects. So that was what was allocated under design. Under administration, there's an admin allocation of $16,469. Actual investment in that is probably closer to $500,000. And that's really just, your staff and your rent and all those things that you need to operate. And then the audit, our annual audit is right around $9,000 a year, but we do a combined audit between On Broadway and the bid, which is similar to what the other bids do as well. Gets you some cost savings. And so 3,000 of that 9,000 really came from the bid, and then the balance is paid for by On Broadway. Under marketing, we do kind of a general allowance for some district branding and promotion, 17,877, same deal there. We invest substantially more than that, particularly with some of the in-kind support that we secure through media partners. If you actually include that in-kind amount, you're probably a couple $100,000 invested in district branding. So underneath that, we show what our annual bid proceeds were. The budget was $82,346. But as many of you know from being here year after year, sometimes those numbers come in a little bit differently. Usually not a lot of deviation, but minor ones. And that's 81,532 is what was received from bid proceeds, and then subsequent delinquencies that come in after that initial check issuance. So I'd like to think that we're taking the money that is allocated by the bid and spending it wisely, but more importantly, leveraging it for much greater impact, which is something I think our organization historically has done very well. So. Yes, sir. DJ.
I think you might have misspoke. Can you go back to murals?
I did not misspeak.
The number that's on ours is the same on both columns.
Yeah, sorry. So the actual meaning, so there's the budget that the bid budgeted, and then the actual is how much of the bid money was spent on that. And then On Broadway matches or contributes even more beyond that. So when I said the mural, I said the number was right around 50,000, 50. That is accurate because On Broadway raised additional funds beyond what the bid allocated to make those investments. And that's really the case with all these. So the actual is really what the bid actual dollars
You
were.
used all the money, you said this was the money, you used all that money, and then
we spent more.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
Got
but
it.
that's a really good observation, DJ. And what I'll maybe do in the future is add a third column that can maybe articulate kind of what On Broadway's contribution above and beyond the bid has been to those respective areas.
That's appreciated.
And you kind of get a sense of it a little bit in the annual report where it shows our expenditures. We follow, we're a nationally accredited Main Street program. So we follow the 4-point approach. Which means that if you invest in these 4 areas, that's where you see the transformation strategy occur. I mean, this is a tested, for 40 years nationally, and it works. And even downtown Green Bay and military, to a certain extent, follow the same formula. They just call them different words. And for us, it's design, which you see on here. It's the investment in your public spaces, public art initiatives, historic preservation, organization, which is that you have a good board of directors, you're engaging volunteers, you have good financial support coming in throughout your community. The third pillar is promotion, which includes your branding of your district, but also all of the events that you do and the way that you program things to bring people into your district from a foot traffic perspective. And then the fourth pillar is economic vitality, which is business recruitment, retention. You're trying to recruit, housing development, fill vacant spaces, that kind of thing.
Excellent. I was kind of wondering why we didn't see you at the last meeting or the meeting before when we saw the other 3, but I wasn't gonna say anything because the meeting was already long.
Yeah.
But good to see you then.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
No, go, yeah.
Can you speak on where you guys are with the market?
Sure. Green Bay Public Market, right? Yep, sure can. So that is a very, very complex project. And I have no hesitation when telling people, why don't we have that now? Because it's hard and there's not enough people willing to do hard stuff. And so, we are still on track with where we wanted to be. I think, like a lot of projects, you sort of have this ideal time frame, and then as things start to happen, you're like, oh, I need a 3-month extension, I need a 6-month extension. And that's really kind of what's happened to us from when we first announced. So why did we announce when we did? It was definitely premature, meaning that we normally wouldn't have made the public announcement when we did. However, we were on the county agenda the following day to talk about ARPA allocation. So we knew if we didn't publicly announce it, the media would have seen that and then they would have controlled the narrative. So it wasn't an ideal timeline for us. Now that said, where are we? We like to say there's 3 buckets to this project. One is tenant relocation and tenant recruitment. So we have to relocate the tenants that are in there, particularly those that have long-term lease rights. And that means you have to come up with favorable conditions for them to get them to agree to that type of relocation. And then you have to recruit the tenants that will ultimately move into the space. We'll have, space for about 28 tenants, although some of them will likely combine stalls. So we're expecting you'd see maybe 20 total. Okay, well, trying to get 20 tenants to all open up on the same day is not easy. So, but we're making really great progress on that front. The second piece of it is really related to architectural engineering and design. We went through a soft bid process with contractors. Really what we wanted our contractors to inform us on was, hey, we've got what we call a 20% bid set, meaning our plans are 20% done. Tell us what you think the numbers would come in at, and because we want to know if we're in the right ballpark. So we make some estimates based on average price per square foot, what it will take to renovate the space. The good news is, knock on wood, this is metal, close enough, that the numbers came in right where we hoped they would. So that's good news, right? Especially with how unpredictable everything is in our environment right now. So we feel that the numbers it's going to cost what we think it was going to cost. And then the third part then, of course, is the funding. And so we are assembling our capital campaign team right now. That is a really dynamite list. It is a list of A-listers that know how to raise money and have experience raising money. But it's more than just private philanthropy. It's new market tax credits, which we've received a preliminary $10 million award on, which when you sell off the tax credits is probably like $2 million, $3 million, somewhere in there. And then some other grants, government grants and things of that nature. So our fundraising is actually on a really good path as well right now. So those are the three buckets.
I'd like to wish you good luck in that venture, and I want to congratulate your On Broadway Incorporated, because I'm all on the very far east side of Green Bay, and time again, when someone calls me and there's an issue, they point to On Broadway and say, look what they did. And we do that on the east side. So thank you very much and continue the good work.
Thank you. And the answer to that question, if it were a question, would be yes, you can do that. Revitalization is hard. And look, I'm the beneficiary of 20 years of hard work before I even showed up. And I'm very mindful of that. And we've done, I think, as a team, some really good work to accelerate some of the work. We brought some new ideas to the table. We've got a couple others that are kind of brewing under the surface right now that we're probably going to do some press conferences on in the near future. So kind of be on the lookout for that. But we're really excited about some of the things that are going on. We feel like we've got some good momentum, which of course, when you have that, it attracts additional investment and additional support. And so we're really starting to see that spiral. But it's been 25 years in the making. Right. And so that's the thing I like to remind people. This is a game of patience. And the Broadway District continues to be one of the most talked about revitalization success stories in the state of Wisconsin. Madison talks about it frequently. And for those who have a memory, which predates even me, I've just heard the stories of what the Broadway corridor used to be like. And of course, I hear how different it is today. And that excites me. I think it should excite everyone in our community. Great. Thanks for the questions.
Yeah.
Second.
I make a motion by Commissioner Braddock, second to Commissioner Rubinski. Approve the annual financial report for On Broadway. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward then to the council for May 2nd. Moving on to informational directors reports, Mr. Stickschulte.
Well, speaking of decisions that take a long time to get things done. So, now we've got that done, at least the rest of us can actually start to get things done and ask questions about, what's going on in the city, not just with the football team anymore. So, but we got that going for us now. That's the good news. So, just a couple of quick updates. Wanted to certainly compliment Gorman. I'm not sure if Mr. Backham is still there. I'm guessing he's probably on the road already, but really for them. And I want to do a special thanks to staff, John Leroy, especially for all of his work in getting that done. And certainly a shout out to our very important partners at WIDA. Really was pretty much a Herculean task, I think, really to pivot as fast and as quickly and effectively as really everybody did on that project to make that one and get that forward for this plan commission meeting tonight. So it just kind of goes to show when you actually have a focused developer who's really ready to work with the city and really make something happen, how fast things can actually move. But it was really a great project. We're very excited and certainly appreciate the commission's support of the project here this evening. But so compliments to really everybody involved on kind of making that happen and a not so kind of unusual circumstances about a month ago. So another update, we received several, I think we received up to 7, I'll check with Dave, comprehensive plan update proposals. We've got it down essentially to 2 finalists. We've done interviews. We're going to be meeting with hopefully the mayor, hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest, to kind of make a recommendation. Probably we'll be bringing that recommended proposal through the plan commission and then on to council for consideration. So hopefully watch for that here in the next couple of weeks. Had a meeting today to discuss very preliminary use concepts for the JBS site with our consultant on that site. We're excited to see really where that's going and starting to really firm up and come together with possible concepts on how the park space would interact with this area, what sort of housing might be coming into the area. So we actually had 7 very preliminary kind of sketch kind of concepts. We're going to be refining those down to 3 or 4 and then eventually down to 2. And I'm sure those will be coming forward to this group for discussion and a presentation here at some point in the next couple of months. John has also been hard at work at finishing up our CRS review regarding floodplain projects with FEMA. He's kind of wrapping up. We've got it down to 42 properties he's going through to kind of verify exactly what sort of improvements have been made in the floodplain to have those done. That's essentially, that helps residents maintain their flood insurance rates. So a very important project that John was unfortunate enough to walk right into when he started here with us, and ended up has done a good job kind of picking that up. So kudos to him and Dave Buck and Aaron Ravinsky on our staff for all the work the 3 of them have really been doing to keep that process moving. Paul Newmeyer used to take care of that, did that for I don't know how many years he was responsible for working on that. And obviously when he retired, kind of have to kind of hit the reset button and get that all started. So thanks to them. Brief coal piles update. We just staff attended the port symposium here about a week ago with Brown County. Essentially, the last update we had is that they were, as soon as they hit 30% design on the Pulliam site, they would be reaching out to C. Rice Coal Company to start incorporating them into the design elements and start using their input into the finalizing the design. They have hit 30%, and we were basically in the room watching them set up that next meeting to discuss that next design level. So we're excited to see that one moving forward. Very good sign that they continue to make progress on that project. Continue to still receive some good federal and state funding to make things happen there. But from our standpoint, a very important part for us getting the actual coal pile site renovated is getting C. Rice involved in the design at the Pulliam site. So we're excited to see that happening. Dave Buck is working on some text amendments for our short-term rentals, essentially ordinances that we're working with our attorney's office to kind of get those reviewed and see if we are very limited in terms of what some of our options are based on the state legislation, our statutes. However, we think there's some avenues we can do to try to improve that licensing process and try to get that going. So probably be having some text amendments hopefully coming forward here in the not too distant future. There you go. So with that, available to answer any questions anybody has.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your report.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
And the date of the next meeting is May 8th, 2023.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vince, second by Commissioner Braddock. All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?